He found an alien chained in an abandoned warship. She said, "Break these seals and the stars will burn." The border of the black halo was not a place for the living. Every salvager in the outer systems knew that. The halo was a tangle of collapsed stars and shattered gravity wells, a graveyard of ships that had drifted too close and been torn apart by invisible hands. Some called it cursed space. Others claimed it was haunted. Rayan Vale didn't believe in curses. He believed in opportunity, especially when the galaxy's scavengers were too superstitious to claim it. The Drift Widow, his ship, slipped through the dim light of a dying star, its hull creaking against the pull of unseen forces. Rayan sat in the pilot's cradle, one hand on the throttle, the other hovering near the grav stabilizer controls. His eyes flicked between the void ahead and the scanner display. Something was out there. Something big. The alert ping came soft and low, almost hesitant, as if even the machine was wary. "Contact detected. Class, derelict warship." Rayan leaned forward. Warship salvage was a dangerous game. Military wrecks were built to survive punishment, and the old ones sometimes carried more than scorched plating. Mines, automated defenses, half-dead AI still convinced the war was raging. But the payout, a single intact reactor core or weapons array, could buy a man 5 years of breathing room. He adjusted course, letting the shadows peel back. The derelict emerged slowly from the void. A vast silhouette, its hull fractured and pitted, armor scorched black. No running lights, no beacon. Its nameplate was half melted, but the old sigil of the Orion Crusades was still visible. A relic from a war fought 3 centuries ago. And it was here, balanced at the very edge of the halo's pull. One wrong burn, and it would slide forever into the black gravity well yawning behind it. Rayan's lips curved into a smile. "You don't belong out here, old girl," he murmured. "Let's see what you've been keeping." Boarding the Ghost. Docking was delicate. One wrong vector and the Widow would shear against the derelict's hull. The mag grapples clamped with a metallic groan, stealing him to the warship's side. Inside his suit, Rayan felt the vibration in his ribs. "Pressure lock engaged," came the voice of Tan, his onboard AI, calm, clipped, faintly irritated. "Hull breach risk is uncomfortably high." "When isn't it?" Rayan replied. He slung his salvage kit over one shoulder and stepped into the airlock. The inner door hissed shut behind him, and the outer door groaned open to reveal the warship's yawning breach. His boots touched down on deck plating, slick with frozen condensation. His helmet lamp sliced through the dark, revealing corridor walls etched with strange fractures, as if the metal had been twisted, not broken, by some impossible force. No power, no sound, just the hollow, endless creak of old metal under strain. He moved deeper. The warship's layout was familiar. Command deck forward, hangars midsection, engineering aft. But the air here felt wrong, too heavy, as though the ship itself were holding its breath. The chamber. After 20 minutes of careful sweep, Rayan found something his scanner had trouble making sense of. A dense pocket of gravitational distortion sat 3 decks down, inside a sealed chamber. Readings spiked erratically, flickering between impossible numbers. "Tan," he said quietly, "I'm reading a mass signature here that's not natural." The AI's voice was sharper now. "Recommendation: abort salvage and return to safe orbit." "That's the problem with you, Tan. No curiosity." He forced the hatch open. What lay beyond made his breath hitch. The chamber was circular, the walls ribbed with blackened conduits. In the center, a ring of curved pylons encircled a figure. Chains, no, not chains. Bands of radiant metal, each etched with symbols that shimmered faintly, held her suspended 1/2 meter above the deck. Light pulsed faintly from the bindings, as though they were breathing. She was tall, easily 2 meters, and her skin had the pale luster of liquid silver. Hair like strands of starlight spilled around her face, obscuring her features. She wore armor unlike anything he'd seen, smooth plates inlaid with more of those glowing sigils, cracked in places but still impossibly intricate. Her eyes were closed, her body utterly still. Yet every instinct in Rayan's bones screamed that she was alive. The first words. He circled slowly, boots clanging softly on the deck. The air in the chamber was warm, humming faintly with some unseen current. The scanner at his wrist couldn't decide what it was looking at. Life form? Machine? Something else entirely? He stopped in front of her, gaze lifting to the delicate arch of her helmetless head. "Guess you're the prize," he muttered. The voice came without warning, soft yet resonant, like the echo of a bell heard through water. "Turn back, human. These seals keep the stars safe." Rayan flinched, hand flying to the sidearm at his hip. Her eyes remained closed. Her lips had barely moved, if they'd moved at all. For a moment, he wasn't sure he'd heard anything at all. "Who are you?" he demanded. His voice sounded small in the vast chamber. Silence. He swallowed, his pulse still thundering in his ears. Right, not creepy at all. Breaking protocol. Every salvage code in the galaxy said the same thing. If it's still breathing, leave it. Live prisoners were trouble. Political, legal, and moral. But this wasn't a prisoner. This was something else, something old. He ran a glove along one of the bindings. It hummed faintly at his touch, the symbols brightening before fading again. The metal was cool, solid, but the scanner reported no physical composition it recognized. Tan's voice was in his ear again, colder now. "Rayan, this is a containment system. Whatever that is, it was locked away for a reason. Which makes it valuable," he said, forcing lightness into his tone. "We'll keep her bound. Drop her in the hold. No one needs to know until we're far from here. You are making a mistake." Story of my life. The extraction. It took nearly an hour to rig the suspension cradle and mag anchors, each one humming faintly as it locked into place. The whole time, the silver-skinned woman never moved, never spoke again. Yet Rayan found himself glancing at her face every few minutes, half expecting those closed eyes to open. When the cradle finally lifted her free of the chamber, the bindings stayed intact, each chain stretching impossibly without breaking. The pylons dimmed as they passed, the hum in the chamber fading to silence. Back aboard the Drift Widow, Rayan sealed the cargo bay and reinforced the field locks. The figure lay suspended in her bindings, turning slowly in the low gravity, hair drifting like strands of silver smoke. He stood there longer than he meant to, helmet under his arm, watching her. In the harsh bay light, the patterns on her armor seemed to shift, flowing almost imperceptibly across the plates. "Whoever you are," he murmured, "you just became the most interesting piece of salvage I've ever taken." And somewhere, deep, deep in the silence between her slow breaths, he thought he heard the faintest whisper. The Drift Widow drifted in the black, her drives at idle, her cargo bay sealed tight around the strange, silver-skinned passenger. Rayan Bale had never felt his own ship this alive. He stood at the edge of the cargo bay's observation deck, arms folded, eyes fixed on the suspended figure below. The chains, those radiant, rune-etched bands, still pulsed in slow, deliberate rhythm. Each throb of light seemed to ripple through the air, faint enough to make him question if he really saw it, but strong enough to make his skin prickle. Tan's voice broke the silence. "I have recalculated the energy readings from the subject's bindings. They are not emitting. They are consuming." "Consuming what?" Rayan asked without looking away. There was a pause, the kind only an AI made when the answer was unsettling. "Spatial harmonics, gravitational resonance. In short, the fabric of this region's space." Rayan snorted softly. "And here I thought I was hauling a prisoner. Turns out I brought home a black hole in chains." Daily routine. For the first 2 days, he kept his distance. He wasn't afraid, not exactly, but something about her stillness was unnerving. She floated there, suspended in the cradle, hair drifting around her face, silver armor glinting dully in the cargo bay's light. No sign of hunger, no change in breathing, no sound but the faint hum of the chains. Yet, he kept coming back. Every 12 hours, he'd descend to the bay with water and nutrient packs, mostly out of habit, part of him expecting nothing. And every time when he returned the next cycle, the water would be gone. The packs, empty. The chains, untouched. It was the only sign she was alive. That, in the way her silence felt deliberate, not vacant. On the third night, as the widow drifted in the deep lanes between sectors, Rayan found himself pulling up a crate beside the cradle. "You probably can't understand me," he said, voice echoing off steel. "Hell, maybe you're asleep in there, but talking to empty rooms is a bad habit I've got." No movement, no reaction. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Ever hear of the Scar Belt Run? No, guess not. It's the job that gave me this." He tapped the faint scar running from his left temple to his jaw. "Salvage gig gone wrong. 2 ships chasing the same derelict. I got the prize. They got my crew." His eyes drifted over the alien's still form. "Been running solo ever since. Easier that way. Nobody to lose." For a moment, he thought he saw the faintest tilt of her head. A trick of the light, maybe, but it was enough to keep him talking. Strange changes. By the 5th day, the widow began to change. The old ship's reactors, usually temperamental, were running smoother. Navigation systems calibrated themselves without input. Even the AI's voice seemed steadier. Tan noticed it first. "This vessel's efficiency has increased by 14.7% since acquisition of the subject. I do not believe this is coincidence." Rayan sat in the pilot's chair, boot tapping against the deck. "So she's fixing the ship without lifting a finger? Or she is altering it. The distinction may be important." He glanced at the live camera feed from the cargo bay. The alien hung in her chains, unmoving. But there was a presence about her now, as if the bay's air was denser, heavier. The first real exchange. That night he went down again, carrying 2 metal cups and a bottle of Baron whiskey. Salvager tradition for marking a hard-won prize. He set 1 cup within her reach, the other in his lap. "You probably don't drink," he said, pouring amber liquid into each. "But tonight's special. First time I've pulled something from the halo without losing a limb." He drank his in one shot, feeling the burn all the way down. "To survival," he muttered. When he came back the next morning, the second cup was empty. "All right," Rayan said aloud, standing at the edge of the cradle. "You're listening? Maybe you even understand. So tell me, what are you?" Her head lifted a fraction. The first movement he'd seen her make. Her voice, when it came, was like the memory of a sound. Soft, resonant, distant. "Chains keep the void from remembering me." The words sent a chill down his spine. "That's not an answer." Silence again, but the tilt of her head remained, as if she were now listening more closely than before. The hunter's signal. It was on the 7th day that Tan's warning shattered the fragile rhythm they'd built. Multiple contacts, 6 signatures, closing fast. Vector suggests interception. Rayan's hands flew over the controls. ID? Unknown. No response to hails. Heat patterns consistent with pursuit craft. A moment later, the comm crackled alive with a voice that was too precise to be anything but military. "Vessel drip. Widow, you are in possession of restricted cargo. Power down your drives and prepare for boarding." Rayan muted the channel. "Tan, plot a hard burn course into the nearest dust fields. That will damage hull integrity. It'll damage theirs more." Engines roared, the widow diving toward a wall of drifting asteroid fragments. The first volley hit before the shields were up, shaking the deck under his boots. She speaks again. In the cargo bay, alarms blared. The alien's chains glowed brighter with each impact. Rayan ran down between evasive maneuvers, blaster in hand, unsure why he was going there instead of staying in the cockpit. She was no longer hanging slack in the cradle. Her head was raised, face angled toward the widow's outer hull. "You brought them," she said without accusation, but with a weight that made his chest tighten. "I didn't." He stopped. "They're after you." They are after what I contain. Another impact rattled the bay. Her bindings flared bright, humming like struck glass. Rayan's instincts screamed at him to release her, fight back with whatever she could do. His better judgment told him that was exactly the wrong move. Instead, he found himself saying, "If you want to live, you're going to have to trust me." The narrow escape. The Widow plunged into the dust field, the ship's shields flaring as micrometeorites scraped past. Pursuit craft followed, firing blind into the haze. Tan's voice cut through the chaos. "Proximity alert, collision imminent." Rayan banked hard, threading the ship through a collapsing asteroid shelf. One hunter craft clipped a fragment and vanished in a burst of light. The others fell back. When the Widow finally broke free into clear space, the scanners showed no pursuit. The silence that followed felt heavy. Back in the bay, he went down to the cargo hold, sweat still cooling on his back. She was as she had been, eyes closed, bound, silent, but the chains were dimmer now, and her breathing deeper. "I don't know who those people are," he said, stepping closer, "but they are willing to die to get to you." "They are keepers of cages," she replied softly. "They think I am one." Rayan leaned against the railing, studying her. "And are you?" Her lips curved, not in a smile, but in something older. "What I am is not a thing you want unbound." That night, he found himself in his bunk, staring at the ceiling, hearing her voice in his head. "Chains keep the void from remembering me." Sleep didn't come easy. Somewhere in the dark, he realized that for the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about his next salvage run. He was thinking about her. The Drift Widow was quiet, too quiet. Rayan Vale had been in enough close calls to know the difference between safety and the pause before a trap. For 3 days after the dust field escape, the scanner stayed clean. No pings, no contacts, no pursuit craft flickering at the edge of the Widow's range, but the air in the ship felt taut, like a wire pulled just before it snaps. Tan noticed it too. Gravitational eddies ahead, minor, possibly debris drift from the halo region. His voice hesitated in a way Rayan didn't like. "Or the wake of cloaked vessels." Rayan's jaw tightened. "Switch to full passive scan. No transmissions, no light bleed. We ghost until I say otherwise." The passenger stirs. In the cargo bay, the silver-skinned woman hung her bindings, as still as ever. But tonight, something was different. Her hair, usually drifting loose, was swept slightly forward, like it had been disturbed by movement. And though her head was bowed, Rayan saw the faint rise of her chest quicken when he entered. "You feel it too, don't you?" he said quietly. Her voice came like the memory of a whisper. "They are here." He glanced toward the ceiling. "Tan hasn't confirmed anything." "They are here," she repeated, with a certainty that chilled him. "They hide in the folds of space, but I hear them moving." Resian stepped closer to the cradle. "You can hear them?" "Not with ears." He stared at her for a long moment. "Then tell me, how many?" Her head tilted just slightly. 3 ships, 31 lives aboard, weapons primed. They think the chains will make me easy to take. The first strike. The Widow shuddered. Not violently, just enough to make the deck hum beneath Rayan's boots. "Impact," he barked into the comm. "Kinetic round," Tan replied. "Minimal damage, likely a warning shot." Rayan's hands clenched. "They're testing us." "They are hurting us," the woman said. He looked down at her. "Toward what?" "A place they believe you cannot run." Decision point. On the bridge, the scanner lit with 3 red blips, closing in a slow pincer. Rayan's fingers drummed against the throttle. Tan's voice was clinical. "Evasion is possible if you are willing to risk hull stress levels beyond—" "Do it," Rayan snapped. The Widow dove, engines flaring. Space blurred past the viewports, star lines bending as Rayan threw her into a sharp arc. But the hunters matched every move. It was like trying to outrun a shadow. In the cargo bay, the bindings around the woman flared brighter with each violent maneuver, their hum resonating through the hull. She kept her head bowed, but her lips moved. Silent words Rayan couldn't hear from the bridge. Forced landing. The trap sprung fast. A mine net bloomed ahead. Thousands of thin, charged filaments stretching across the widow's path. Rayan cursed and killed the drives, bleeding speed before impact. The ship jolted, caught in the net like an insect in a web. TAN status? External snare field engaged. Engine outputs suppressed. Power drain increasing. Rikayan's teeth ground together. They've got us. The boarding. The hunters didn't waste time. Grapples thudded against the widow's hull, and the thump of magnetic locks echoed through the ship's frame. TAN, Rayan said, lock down every bulkhead between them and the bay. Already engaged. Estimated breach in 3 minutes. He grabbed his blaster, then hesitated. His gut screamed at him not to go near the cargo bay, but his instincts dragged him there anyway. Chains in the dark. She was waiting for him. Head lifted now, face angled toward the corridor. The chains were no longer just glowing. They were singing, a low harmonic vibration that seemed to rattle his bones. You could help, Rayan said, keeping his blaster low. You could stop them. I could, she agreed, but the chains are your safety as much as theirs. He stepped closer. And if they take you, then you will die, either in this hull or in the slow collapse of worlds. The deck shook with the first hull breach. The offer. Rayan's voice was low, urgent. If I break the chains. Her head turned sharply. You cannot break them. Then how? They can only be unmade, and only by my will. He took a breath. So, will you? For a long moment she said nothing. Then, will you run if I do? Rayan met her closed eyes. No, the fight. The first hunter through the breach was met by Rayan's blaster fire, the shot punching through reflective armor. 2 more followed, returning fire that chewed into the bulkheads. Rayan fell back toward the cradle, using the bindings as partial cover. The woman's voice came calm, almost gentle. Step aside. He did. The chains flared, light spilling in patterns across the bay walls. The air thickened, pressurizing without any system change Rayan could see. The next hunter through the door staggered mid-stride, weapon lowering as if some invisible weight dragged at his limbs. Another entered, and another, until 5 were in the bay. She never moved from the cradle, but her bindings thrummed with power, and one by one the hunters dropped to their knees, gasping as though drowning. Partial freedom. Rayan stared. What are you doing to them? Showing them a shadow of what I hold. The glow dimmed. The hunters collapsed, unconscious but breathing. The chains resumed their steady pulse. They will send more, she said. They'll send everyone they've got, Rutin replied. Then you must choose quickly, Rayan Vale. Retreat. He didn't remember running back to the bridge, but suddenly he was there, hands slamming controls, voice barking at TAN for every scrap of power the widow had left. The ship wrenched free of the grapple net, barely, and dove toward a nearby moon surface. Behind them, huntercraft gave chase. But the widow hit Atmo hard, skimming low over jagged terrain, until Rayan spotted a fissure wide enough to swallow them whole. He dove in, vanishing into the shadowed canyon. The scanners showed the hunters circling above, unwilling to follow into the narrow confines. For now, they were safe. In the fissure. In the dim canyon light, Rayan sat opposite her in the bay, sweat streaking his face. You didn't kill them. No. Why? Because killing them now would bring their masters faster, and because you asked without words. He frowned. I didn't. You did. That single exchange hung between them, heavy and strange as the widow hid in the rock's shadow. Rayan didn't know it yet, but the choice he'd refused to make tonight would come back for him. And when it did, the stars themselves might remember her. This section ends with both temporary safety and bigger stakes, perfect to lead into Section 4, where the seals begin to break. I've kept the tension tight and let her power show just enough to make the audience want more without revealing everything yet. The canyon walls bled darkness. Outside, the moon's night stretched endless and cold. But inside the fissure, the air felt thick, like it was holding its own breath. Rayan Vale sat in the pilot's chair, watching the scanner's faint pings. The hunter craft were still out there circling, patient, waiting for the widow to make a move. "They know we can't stay here," he muttered. "They know you can't." Her voice came from the bay, quiet but certain. Rayan glanced over his shoulder. "Meaning? The chains feed on what I am, slowly. If I remain too long in one place, they weaken." His eyes narrowed. "And when they weaken?" She didn't answer right away. When she did, it was almost a whisper. "What they hold breathes." The first fracture. 2 hours passed. The hunters didn't leave. Instead, the scanner showed their formation, tightening above the canyon. Then Tan's voice cut through. "Energy spike. Source, unknown. Location, cargo bay." Rayan's stomach dropped. He ran. She was still in the cradle, but the bindings weren't steady anymore. Light crawled faster along the runes as if alive, and one of the links, an arc of metal etched with a spiral sigil, had a crack. Just hairline, but glowing. "What happened?" Rayan demanded. "Time," she said simply, "and the weight of your hunter's presence." The crack widened with a soft sound, like ice breaking underfoot. A pulse rolled through the bay, and every system light flickered. Rayan staggered, a headache spiking behind his eyes. The descent. Above, the hunters made their move. Drop ships peeled away from the main formation, plunging toward the canyon mouth. "They're coming in on foot," Rayan said, already pulling his blaster. "Tan, seal bulkheads. B through F. Force them to bottleneck." "Done," the AI replied. "But I must point out, no time." He turned to her. "If I let this chain go—" "You won't have to," she interrupted. "It's already going." The first unleashing, the chain snapped, not with a clang or a shatter, but with a soundless flash of light that seemed to suck heat from the air. The broken band drifted free, still glowing, before dissolving into nothing. The change in her was immediate. Her head lifted fully. The silver of her skin deepened, catching the bay light in strange liquid reflections. The air around her shifted, pressed, bent. Rayan stumbled back a step. "What did that?" "Less than you fear. More than they can survive." Contact. The first wave hit the bay doors hard. Magnetic cutters sparked against reinforced alloy. Rayan aimed down the line, blaster ready. The door gave with a deafening bang, and armored figures poured in. She didn't move at first. She didn't have to. A ripple moved through the bay, silent, invisible. But the lead hunters staggered, their weapons dipping. The next instant, she was on the deck. Not floating, not hanging, standing. Her steps were silent, but each seemed to carry a weight that made the deck groan. She passed Rayan without looking at him, and the nearest hunter raised his weapon. Too slow. She touched his arm, and the armor around it buckled like paper, hurling him into the wall. The battle in close quarters. Rayan fought alongside her, but it felt like standing next to a storm. His blaster fire took 2 hunters down, but she moved in arcs of precision, breaking formations before they could stabilize. The remaining hunters fell back, switching to stun rounds. One caught her in the side, enough to make her flinch. Another clipped her shoulder. Rayan saw her sway. "You're hit." "Not enough," she said, voice. The second fracture. Mid-fight, another chain split. Rayan didn't even see it happen until the light changed. Brighter now, harsh and cold. A wind that wasn't wind moved through the bay, pulling at his hair, tugging at his breath. Her movements sharpened, almost too fast to follow. Hunters collapsed without her touching them, helmets fogging from the inside, armor systems seizing. One of them managed to gasp, She's unbound," before she silenced him with a glance. The choice. The survivors retreated to the far bulkhead. Rayan leveled his blaster, but he knew they weren't beaten. They were regrouping. He turned to her. "You can finish this," he said. "End it." She met his eyes, or rather, the place where her eyes would be if they weren't still closed. "If I end it now, more will come, and the chains will fail sooner." "Then what? We hide until they do?" "We move, before this moon remembers me." Escape through the wound. They fought their way to the docking ring. The widow's ramp hissed closed behind them as Rayan threw the ship into a vertical burn, engines screaming against gravity. The moon's surface fell away, the canyon vanishing into shadow. Above, the hunter craft broke formation, some giving chase, others falling back toward their larger carriers. Tan's voice was strained. "Pursuit craft inbound. 2 minutes to intercept." Rayan's hands flew over controls. "Plot a blind jump. Randomize coordinates. Give me every scrap of fuel for the first burst." "Done. Brace for—" The widow lurched as another hit glanced off her shields. Sparks cascaded from an overhead panel. In the dark between stars, they jumped. For a moment, the stars stretched, smeared into impossible lines, and then snapped back. The widow drifted in silence, floating in a nameless patch of deep space. Rayan exhaled hard, shoulders sinking. "We lost them. For now," she said. "But the chains are weaker, and I am less contained." He looked at her, standing now, the remaining bindings dimmer, 2 entirely gone. "Is that a good thing?" She didn't answer. Her head turned toward the viewport, toward the infinite dark, and Rayan had the sudden, sharp feeling that something out there was turning to look back. The drift widow drifted in nameless dark. No stars, no beacons. Just the hum of her life support and the faint pulse of the bindings that still clung to the silver-skinned woman in the cargo bay. Rayan Vale stood at the bridge viewport, hands braced against the console. "How long until they find us?" Tan's voice was flat. "Based on the energy signature emitted by the broken bindings, not long." He closed his eyes. "Give me a number." "Hours, perhaps less." Behind him, soft steps, bare feet on steel. He turned. She was there, not in the cradle now, but standing at the top of the ramp, the 3 remaining chains wrapped loosely around her arms and waist. Her hair floated in the recycled air, catching stray motes of light. "You're not resting," he said. "There is no rest. They are coming." The arrival. The scanners screamed first, dozens of red pings fanning out from a single, massive signature. Rayan's stomach dropped. "That's not just hunters." "No," she said, and her voice was heavy with certainty. "That is their master." The ship emerged from the dark like a continent with engines, a reclaimer dreadnought. Flanking it, a swarm of smaller assault craft, enough to blot out a moon. The comm crackled alive, a voice deep and cold. "Rayan Vale, you have something that belongs to the Reclamation Accord. Surrender it, and your death will be quick." He muted the channel. "They've got us boxed." "You always had us boxed," she said. Her offer. She stepped closer, the last chains rattling softly. "If I open my eyes, this ends." He shook his head. "You told me." "Yes, it destroys, but it also chooses. You could be chosen." "And if I'm not?" "Then your death will be fast, painless." Rayan stared at her. "Hell of a sales pitch. You must decide. Do you want to live in the shadow of chains, or see the truth and carry it?" The boarding begins. The dreadnought's grapples locked. The widow's hull groaned under the pull. Red breech lights strobed across the bridge. Tan's voice cut in. Clipped. "Multiple docking signatures. Estimated 37 boarding troops inbound." Rayan felt the weight of the blaster at his hip. "We can't hold against that." She lifted her face toward him. "One word, and I will end it." He hesitated only a second. "Do it." The breaking. The first chain split in a burst of light. Then the second, the sound like a bell struck in the bones. The last broke with a slow, drawn-out hum that seemed to pull every shadow toward her. She stood free now. The sigils on her armor flared, running liquid bright across silver plates. The air grew dense, humming with invisible tension. Rahayan took an involuntary step back. "What happens now?" "Now," she said, "you keep your word." The eyes open. The boarding doors blew inward, hunters pouring through, weapons up. She turned toward them and opened her eyes. Light roared out. Not just light, patterns, spirals within spirals, galaxies turning inside pupils that were no pupils at all. It hit Rayan like a physical wave, heat and cold and memory all at once. The hunters screamed. Some dropped weapons and clawed at their helmets. Others froze mid-step, blood seeping from their noses and ears. One by one they fell. The dreadnought itself shuddered, as if its hull felt the weight of that gaze. The master falls. A new presence filled the boarding corridor. A tall figure in ornate black armor, face hidden behind a mirrored mask. The voice from the comm, now here in person. "Contain her! Do not!" She looked at him. The mirrored mask cracked, the voice inside breaking into a strangled gasp. His knees buckled, his gauntlets clawed at empty air, as if drowning in something only he could feel. "You hunted me," she said, voice layered in harmonics that made Rayan's teeth ache. "You sought to cage what you do not understand." Her hand rose, palm to his forehead. The light flared and he collapsed, armor smoking, eyes wide and empty. The aftermath. Silence. The hunters lay scattered across the deck, alive in body, broken in mind. The dreadnought's engines flickered in the distance like a beast stunned mid-charge. She turned to Rayan. Her eyes still blazed, but softer now, focused entirely on him. "You did not run," he swallowed. "Told you I wouldn't." She stepped closer until the air between them was warm with that impossible light. "Then you are chosen." He managed a crooked smile. "What does that mean?" "It means you are bound to me, not as warden, not as master, as partner." The departure. She closed her eyes again. The light dimmed, the galaxy in her gaze folding back into darkness. Around them, the air eased. The widow's systems flickered back to normal. Tan's voice returned, tentative. "The enemy vessels are withdrawing." Rayan let out a long breath. "Guess we won." "No," she said quietly. "We bought time. Others will come. Stronger. Hungrier." He nodded slowly. "Then we'll be ready." Her head tilted, and for the first time she smiled. Faint, but real. "We will." The final beat. As the widow pulled away from the drifting dreadnought, Rayan set a course into deep space. The stars ahead had glittered cold and distant. "What do I call you?" he asked. She considered. "My true name would break your mind, but you may call me Salus." "Salus," he repeated, tasting the word. "All right, Salus, where to?" She looked at the stars, eyes still closed, but somehow seeing farther than he ever could. Toward the place where the chains began, and where they must end. Rahayan grinned, the old thrill of danger singing in his veins. "Then let's burn the map." Side by side they faced the dark, hunter and hunted, no chains between them, and the stars ahead waiting to remember her. This finale gives the audience the payoff of her power, the bond between them, and an open-ended hook for future adventures, all while keeping the emotional core intact.